Hi, Nilesh.
Hi, good evening, Vaibhav. Good. We'll just wait for another 2-3 minutes. At 6:05, we will start. Yeah. Dr. Vaibhav, you're there, na? Diksha, I think we can start.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's program hosted by Chamber for Advancement of Small and Medium Businesses. I would request everyone to please mute yourself. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat box. We'll have a Q&A session at the end. Now I would like to invite our president, Mr. Nilesh Lele, sir, to give a brief overview and also introduce today's speaker. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Diksha. And warm welcome to all our audience here. A special welcome to our today's speaker, Dr. Vaibhav Tirke, a very good friend. And I'm sure listening to him, a lot of you will be motivated and probably he'll share his journey where he started his startup while he was still doing his PhD. So before I introduce him, I would also take this opportunity to talk more about our chamber, which was recently founded and is headquartered out of Mumbai in BKC in Bandra. And if you want to know more details about our other initiatives and a few more details, you can visit our website at casmb.org.in. We are very much active on all social media sites. And if you have missed any of our past webinars in the month of March or May, they are all available on our YouTube channel at CSMB India. Today's webinar is also getting recorded and will be uploaded there. This chamber, as I said, was founded in December 2020 and officially launched on 1st March 2021. So we are less than 3 months old. And we started this chamber with a mission to work closely with all the stakeholders for advancement of micro, small, and medium businesses, which is obviously evident from our chamber's name as well. We are carrying a mission to make MSMEs all the more resilient and make them stronger backbone of Indian economy. As we all know, MSME contributes more than 30% to the Indian GDP and more than 48% in the manufacturing exports. It also employs more than 11 crore people, and that's precisely why it's called the backbone of the country. On December 20th, 2020, Honorable Minister for MSME, Shri Nitinji Gadkari, has given us a target as well as shown us a vision that the contribution to GDP should go up from 30% to 40% and to the export contribution in manufacturing from 48% to 60%. With this, the sector is also expected to add 5 crore jobs in next 5 years. And that's why some of like-minded people came together. Few of us came together, and late 2020, at the height of pandemic COVID-19, we decided to form this chamber with a single target in mind, to empower the MSME entrepreneurs to achieve the next level success. We have defined various objectives, and we want to represent MSME in various forums, be it with the government, with the bureaucrats, everywhere. We want our voice to be heard. In fact, we have also submitted our inputs to the Ministry of Food Processing for the PLI scheme, Performance Link Incentive Scheme in the food processing. Some of them have also been incorporated. And obviously on coming Thursday, we have an expert who will explain us the PLI scheme in more details. So make sure to join us in 2 days as well. We also want to empower farmers, and that we're trying to do through bringing experts like we have Dr. Vaibhav here today, who is an expert, and he'll explain more about his journey as well as dehydration techniques that he has done. And in fact, he's doing a lot of work in countries in Africa and obviously in farmers in India. So we're trying to bring recent technologies, the research that is happening, the different government schemes, different policies. So we're trying to become a single point of contact and bring a convergence of different stakeholders as part of this platform. We are also helping SMEs to cater to global market. We are conducting various capacity building programs like what we are doing through this webinar series, through which we are imparting training and development to the MSMEs, especially the startups and the startup entrepreneurs. Hopefully after COVID goes away, we will plan some study tours, help our MSMEs come up with strategic tie-ups, organize as well as participate in various exhibitions. We have been very fortunate to have a very strong team. We have an excellent advisory board team here who comes with a vast experience, especially in the field of food and nutrition, as well as Dr. K.D. Kamble, who was the joint CEO of Khadi. So he comes with a bureaucratic background. As we also have a very strong management team with the members bringing strong experience in the field of food, finance, sales, marketing, entrepreneurship. We are also having footprints in 3 states, including Ms. Arpita representing us in Gujarat and Samir representing us in Goa. Obviously, we are headquarters out of Maharashtra. So slowly and steadily, we plan to build our footsteps in other states as well. So when we kicked off in the month of March, we decided that we will try to focus on various topics. And every Mondays, we have been trying to bring entrepreneurs talk about their success story. Yesterday, we heard Jayanti Madam, who's the owner of the Purna Brahma chain of Maharashtrian restaurants, especially out of Maharashtra. She spoke about her journey. And in past, we have brought entrepreneurs from various walks of life who have obviously showed and told us about their journey. And I'm sure most of you are also motivated listening to them. Through technology transfers, where we have that session on every Tuesday, we have had experts talk about right from novel technologies for turmeric processing to fruit wines, NIFTEM, BRC, various different research institutes and academic institutes have also presented their technologies which are already available for transfer. Similarly, we have Dr. Vaibhav, who is a PhD from ICT, and his technology has already been transferred at various locations and is available for further transfer, which I would definitely ask Dr. Vaibhav to tell more about it during his talk. On Wednesdays, we have a weekly knowledge forum. And in fact, tomorrow we're going to have a speaker, Mr. Frankenstein from Germany, who is going to talk about the future of food industry, smart manufacturing. So I welcome all of you to join tomorrow's session, which is probably our first international speaker. We also have an international speaker on Friday. This is a unique week where we'll have 5 sessions. And Dr. Darshane, who is ex Coca-Cola, and he's going to talk about FSSC 22000 and how to basically take your MSME to the next level. In fact, from Friday's session is also supported by, and I'm very proud to announce that it's actually we are being supported by MCED, which is the Government of Maharashtra initiative, and we'll have chief guest Shri Londe sir on Friday, who will also talk about the various initiatives that the Industries Ministry in Maharashtra is doing. So far, we have had various webinars, and 32 of those are already uploaded on YouTube, and more than 3,000 people have watched it live. I think today's count stands at 49. I'm sure it will go up and hopefully cross 50. And similarly, more than 3,000 have watched it on our YouTube channel. We have more than 700 YouTube subscribers as we speak, and we encourage everybody to please visit our YouTube and subscribe to our channel. So in the month of March, we did these webinar series, and we realized that there are certain lacunas or certain other things that the MSME needs. Just one second. Sorry, there were certain marks on the screen. Yeah. So we launched 4 initiatives in the month of April, where one of them is the Startup Buddy program, where unofficially we have been mentoring a lot of startups, more than 250 startups through WhatsApp groups. And now we're trying to formalize it and assign mentors to certain mentees in the startup space. We have also launched a buyer seller meet, and definitely we will have it in near future, especially for food industry, where various startups can have. I request someone who's making marks on the screen to please refrain from doing that. Yeah, thank you. So the buyer seller meet is something that will definitely happen in the month of June, and please look out for the announcement in future days to come. We have also launched the Chamber Investor Network, which was another need we thought a lot of startups have, where they're looking for funds. So that is also something we launched in April and has got really good response from various startups as well as from investors. And the 4th initiative, which is the industry defined problem. And in fact, this will be something that we'll be focusing on in the month of June, because we have also been approached by various colleges where they want their students to be doing internship. And through the chamber, we are trying to get we are creating an internship program where students can actually attend lectures, as well as we'll have experts come and talk to them. Since it's going to be a remote internship, the chamber will actually try to create a platform for the students to, as if they're actually visiting the industry. And so that's why we will be encouraging problem statements from industry, so that the students can take them as their project and probably come up with different solutions. So these were the 4 initiatives we launched. And we have also started our member meet, where all our members meet once a month on through virtual meetings right now, and hopefully business is transacted within the members. And women's cell is something, and especially yesterday we intentionally had a woman entrepreneur, because we want to encourage more and more women to become entrepreneur. So obviously these are all benefits and initiatives that you can be part of if you are our member. And addition to that, like today we have 4 members, Association of Food Scientists and Technologists, All India Food Processors, NetProfan, as well as Entra02 are our partners in this webinar series. So any of their events are either free or at subsidized rate to our members as well. And last but not the least, our member office, a chamber office in BKC is available for use for any of our chamber member. So what have been some of the achievements in last less than 3 months? We have already created the mentor-mentee matchup for more than 250 food startups through the Startup Buddy program, and we're trying to make it more and more formalized. 15 startups have already pitched their ideas, and some of them are in advanced stages of discussion as well as getting funded through various investors. The buyer seller meet, like I said, and I've been promising it for quite some time, but it will happen for sure. And then the technology transfer, I'm very happy to say that various technologies, including fruit vegetable processing, turmeric processing, dehydration, jaggery processing, fruit winery, all of these are in advanced stages. Few startups are already talking to the experts, the innovators, with regards to technology transfer. We have tried to keep the membership fee as low as possible, and I'm sure most of us may fall in 5 crore or less turnover, and the fees is hardly 2005 rupees per year. So I encourage more and more people to become member of our chamber, so that it will also help us do more and more programs. And feel free to send in suggestions as to what are the things, what are the pain points that you have, which we'll try to address either through speakers or trainers or whatever. These are my contact details, my phone number, as well as my email address. So if anybody has any questions offline, they can contact me or Diksha or Prajakta or any of the names you saw in the advisory board, as well as in the management team. So with this, I take the opportunity to welcome a very nice gentleman as well as a very good friend, Dr. Vaibhav Tidke. So Vaibhav is currently the co-founder and CEO at S4S Technologies. S4S Technologies is the food preservation company that invents new food processing machines. S4S sells these machines to farmers to produce the highest quality processed food. Under the leadership of Dr. Vaibhav, S4S has developed and commercialized a range of patented food dehydration technologies for farmers and industry. Dr. Vaibhav uses a fundamental scientific understanding to develop new technologies and finds sustainable ways of commercialization in order to make a social impact through S4S. This positions his business as a pioneer in the sustainable food dehydration space. S4S works directly with more than 2,700 farmers and farmer cooperatives under its solar powered dehydration initiative, supported by USAID, UK Aid, the Gates Foundation, and the Government of India. Under his dynamic leadership, S4S brings together a range of private, government, and agri value chain members under a single umbrella and nurture a high level entrepreneurship at S4S Technologies. He is an active consultant in food and renewable energy and supports startups in numerous ways. We both share our same alma mater. I'm very proud to introduce Dr. Vaibhav Tidke, who is a PhD in chemical engineering from Institute of Chemical Technology. So Dr. Vaibhav, over to you. Dr. Vaibhav, you're still on mute if you want to unmute and take over. Hello, Dr. Vaibhav, can you hear us? We can't hear you as yet. Hello, Dr. Vaibhav, are you there? Let me give him a call and check. Just one second.
Hi Nilesh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry. Go ahead.
Thanks Nilesh and arranging a program, and thanks to be part of this wonderful communication happening here. And congratulations on the various initiatives that you have already taken. So I think some of these things are really useful for us to, as a community, as a small medium enterprises as well as startups, to be in this space. So uh, again, thanks a lot. Welcome everyone. Good evening. And I will basically go through very quickly around what we do, because I know that the audience is slightly large. I will not go into much technical details, but happy to answer more specific questions as we progress or even after the session as well. So just to give a quick background, I represent Esperis Technologies. I am a CEO and co-founder at Esperis. We are mainly into the food dehydration and food processing business. And the overall philosophy that we have created is that how the food processing can be decentralized and brought near to the farm gate, so that we save on logistic cost, we save on post-harvest losses. At the same time, create rural livelihoods near the farm gate, and then take that produce out to the various industrial segments. I started my journey from Institute of Chemical Technology, UDCT, and did my PhD in solar food processing, and that's how entered into this domain. When we started working in university as a technocrats, we realized that some of these technologies are already existing, but they are not in the format which can be brought to the level the farmers are using it. And that's where the journey started around how we can relook at the entire food processing space and simplify the technologies and bring it to the farmer level. As for stand for Science for Society, so there are two integral DNA pillars of our organization. One is technical innovations that we carry on, and at the same time how these innovations can make impact to the society. So these are the two ways. And finally, we are a business, so we definitely look at how we create business in terms of top line, bottom line. So that's our journey so far. Going to so I will just start sharing my screen. Yes, so I will go through a case study which is basically focused around Maharashtra, and then we can slightly go into details. So at Esperis, this is how our value chain works. We identify farmers who generally grow various agri commodities, and we buy this produce from farmers, and that's how we make our first transaction. Then we take this produce to what we call as the women entrepreneurs, which are to whom we have basically provided food processing tools, and these women entrepreneurs convert this agri produce into a value-added product, something that you can see here. So, for example, farmer is growing a tomato, these women entrepreneurs convert it to a other product. Finally, all of these products come to our factory, and where we make a product that is suitable to the given industrial segment. So for example, tomato can be converted to gravy, it can be converted to powder or any other application. And then finally that product is taken out to the consumer. It can be industry, B2B, SME, whatever. And then finally they use our product as an ingredient in their bucket. Currently our major focus is into dehydration space. Products that we are doing are onion, ginger, turmeric, garlic, tomato, potato. Also, we entered into the pulses processing and some of the staple processing, including maize. So these are the range of products we are doing. But these are the four pillars of our business; those remain constant. One is the farmer for sourcing, other is women entrepreneurs, third is our factory, which is into the quality control and ensure a final check, and finally a customer. So in the whole process, farmers also get benefit because they get a right price for their product at the farm gate. We create local livelihood options for the women, ensure the right quality to our customers through our factory, and and at the end, they can also earn save money because we give them a product that is ready to use, that has shelf life. What are the key benefits just going through a tomato example? Rather than using a fresh tomato, if they use a tomato that is produced by this technology, the freshness remains intact and the nutrition also. So we carried out a range of scientific studies where between 85 to 99% nutritions are intact. And when you use these dehydrated products to make a product, it tastes the same as equal to the fresh product. You don't need any chemical additives, you don't need cold storage, no losses. And at the usage, you just have to add water, the product becomes ready. your cooking time also reduces almost by 50%, and you get a shelf life of 12 months. Apart from that, the storage space of the final product is almost 90% saved. So basically, rather than shipping say 100 kg of tomato, you are shipping say 5 kg of dehydrated tomato, and that simplifies the whole shelf life issue. At the back of the entire organization that we have built, the core of our thing is a solar conduction dryer, and this is basically a solar powered dehydrator that allows to convert these fresh produce or agri produce into a value added products. The technology looks very simple. In fact, it is simple, but it works. This technology has been proven to work for more than 45 products. Globally, we have patent as well as industrial design. This is being used in more than 14 countries now, and reported one of the highest efficiency in the world. There is no maintenance, no moving component for this. Entire design is developed in such a way that it is women-centric. Mainly what we observed in Indian context is that when food processing is done at a mini level, it is mainly women job than a man job. And this we did almost from survey of around 500 customers that we had. And this can be used at a farm gate in a very simplistic way. Currently, we have more than, numbers are slightly old, more than 800 active customers, more than 85% of them are repeat. We are processing over 20,000 tons of material every year with a good margins. And we have good customers starting from MTR to Nestle to Marico to Indian Railways and Sodexo. We have around 500 women entrepreneurs, more precisely now, saving more than 25,000 tons of CO2. And this food is being used by more than 1 million people across the world. Just to give some of the outcomes, typically a farmer is earning around 50,000 plus rupee if they are working with us. We have more than now 3,500 farmers working with us, almost 500 women entrepreneurs to whom we have created livelihood. Product that we are dealing are turmeric, tomato, ginger, garlic, coconut, onion, potato, range of products. This is how a value chain might it look like. Earlier was the pictorial representation. It's more of a wording. So farmers and FPOs we work with so that they can produce material and we buy from them. Then that material is shipped to women agri entrepreneurs at a village level where they do a dehydration, and finally we pick that material. In terms of partners, we have government, financing organizations, donors, and apart from that, customers. So we did consider scientific and socio-economic studies with organizations like Gates Foundation, Shell Foundation, FICCI, US government, UK government, Indian government, so that the case studies are came out, and the alignment and the mission alignment also checked. We also work with NGOs like BIAF and Pradhan and SAFU in Aurangabad. Also, our bank partners starting from NABARD to Avanti Finance to Jai Kisan. This is how a typical setup look like, and this is one of the structure in Aurangabad. On the right hand side, you will see sourcing. On left hand side, you will see a final packaging being done at our factory. This is how our typical involvement with women entrepreneurs go. We give them training, demonstrations, involve them, and once they start enrolling, we enter to the production phase. Other picture of women farmer. Again, few of the pictures, and this is how a typical profile of our woman entrepreneur look like. Age between 25 to 40-year-old, small rural woman farmer, has extra time apart from her farmer and family farming and family work, and she gets associated with us. So that's a quick background, and we'll take a pause here. I don't really keep slides low so that we can get more time to speak, and open for any further questions around this. Areas that we are working are Aurangabad, Jalgaon, Odisha, and Tamil Nadu. These are the 4 places we are working in. We work in a very close-knit circle. We don't expand our geography so rapidly. Typically between say 10 to 25 kilometers radius from our location we operate with, so that it's a operations heavy business. We have to reach out to micro entrepreneurs and farmers typically on daily basis. So we work on a very, very closed geography and not like expanded all across the places. Only 4 districts where we work in as of now. So we'll take a pause here and happy to go into more details and answering the questions now.
So Dr. Vaibhav, like what are the typical sizes or investment, or like if someone wants to set up, or you set up the dehydration units?
So in terms of investment, there is no investment from the customer side. What happens is that these women entrepreneurs who have a onboarding team, which basically reaches out to these women entrepreneurs through government and NGOs and also our own staff. And once they enroll, we link them to the bank financing. It's a tri-party agreement between bank, SPORS, and micro entrepreneur, and it basically EMI setup. So machine is given out to them, training is given out to them, and EMI starts. And while paying EMI, when we have to make them a payment for processing, a part of the payment is cut, deducted, and goes to the bank. So there is no upfront investment in the whole process. Typically, we work with a 3-year payback period with the women entrepreneurs, but there is no upfront payment. A token payment of maybe 5,000 or something, which is a registration fees we take, 4 to 5,000.
Okay. And what are some of the products, if you can repeat, because dehydration is something that many people are interested in Maharashtra. So tomato, we understood. What are some of the other products?
We are dealing in majorly the products which are more commoditized: onion, garlic, ginger, turmeric, tomato, and potato. French bean, carrot also we do in some quantities.
Okay. And you did mention about your patented products and solar dehydration. So if you can explain a little bit of more, because people have heard a lot about dehydration, tray drying, and so many things. But if you can, maybe a little bit of technical aspects as well.
Surely. So I think drying itself is a topic of a discussion, but see, slightly going into details of a dehydration space. When you harvest any agri-produce, which is perishable, microbes start attacking that. And that's the journey of a product, whether it will deteriorate, and within that time span you have to process. So drying is basically you try to eliminate water out of that, and so that you bring water to such a level that microorganisms cannot survive in that material. That's the basis of a drying. So the moment you harvest, the process of a degradation of material starts, and at the same time the process of dehydration will begin, and it competes with each other. So drying in general is done by multiple ways. It's a standard industrial process. Most common are boiler-based dryers at industrial level, which operate on a conveyor belt, and you can process typically from say 10 to hundreds of tons of material. That's like one category. Then we also have electrical dryers, which are high in operating cost, but those are suitable for high value products. Typically in the cities and urban areas, for high value products, those can be processed. And we are into other space, which is a farm level dehydration, where electricity is a problem, operating cost is a problem, but people have extra, like time is available and space is available. So that's where the solar drying come into the picture. And again, to share, maybe I will see if I have other picture. Operation wise is very simple. We provide a cutter and a dryer. So a person has to wash whatever the product they have. We give them what is a specific cut size. They cut it and they load on this tray. And then the tray goes inside. And typically after, based on 2 to 8 hours, typically in most of the cases, you take out the tray, material is dried, and you pack it. So it's a very simple in operation. This technology we call as conduction drying, because in the earlier cases of a dehydration, mostly hot air is used for drying purposes. Here we use a solar heat that is converted into heat using a specialized tray, and those trays are heated typically to 50 to 55 degrees Celsius, and that heat you use. So air is basically used just to take away moisture, but the major source of a heat is conduction, and that's why we call it the conduction drying. Again, happy to answer more questions around this as and when needed.
So what you have right now on the screen is a dryer, basically, with those trays. So you pull them trays out and then you push them back, and on the top are the solar panels. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, very good. So there are a few questions in the chat box. Let me take those before people can unmute and also ask. So one of them is asking, can it be used for drying mushrooms?
Yes, it can be used for drying mushrooms. Commercial potential I have to check at, but yes, it can be used for drying mushrooms.
Okay. And typically solar is always that issue comes up, that what about rainy season and the efficiency, we cannot do it at night, something like that.
So what we do see, one of the reason of using a solar drying is operating cost also. So what we have done is we have provided electrical backup to the system, so that if you have to extend during night, whether you want to do in rainy season, you can still use it. It will have, so in normal case it has zero operating cost. In case of electrical, it start costing between say 6 to 10 rupee per kg input. So that's the operating cost that we have to start bearing as we move to the electrical operation. But that facility we provide.
Okay. And 6 to 10 rupees you are saying is at a wet level, right?
Yes, wet
As
level.
a loading
Yes.
level, like raw material level, 6 to 10 rupees per kg.
Yes. So typical equation is to take away 1 kg of water, you need 1 unit of electricity. So based on a product and based on electricity cost, you can do a math.
Okay. Few other questions have come in. Probably the answer is yes. Can you use it for pineapple? Can you use it for mango jelly, for figs, for other fruits, ladyfinger, bitter gourd?
All of them, only fig we haven't tried. Rest all products we have tried works.
Okay. Someone is asking, how is the evaporated water eliminated from the dryer?
Okay, I will just show again a picture. So here you see a entry. So these are the points from where the air enters, and what we have created a chimney effect. So air goes from this point and comes out of the chimney. So that's how the evaporation of the water happens, and that is taken out.
Okay. Someone is asking, Sachinji is asking, how temperature can be maintained if excess heat is created, or is there any formula for time temperature for each crop?
Surely. So there are a couple of parameters that we play with. Number one, the design itself, hardware design. So this entire principle is based on what we call as a natural convection, and which operates on the basis of a density difference between the air, which is a function of a temperature difference. So the moment temperature starts rising, the density of the air goes down, and the air circulation increases. As the air circulation increases, the temperature drops. So it's more of an automatic control. Typically, we have seen between 50 to 60 or 50 to 55 is the most optimum temperature where it operates. The other way, apart from the design, how we can control temperature is vary the loading. So if you know that you don't have enough sunlight today and you want more temperature, then in that case you can load less so that the load of a heat for water evaporation is less, and you can operate the dryer with optimum temperature. So a couple of ways. Number one, the design itself take care of it because of natural phenomena of a control, and also how you load the material based on your need. So these are the two ways by which we take control and optimize the dryer for most of the products.
Okay. Someone is asking, can a farmer directly contact S4S and sell their products like onion and ginger? I think
Yes.
yeah, go ahead.
Yes, that can be done. We have a procurement teams that work with. Generally, what we have seen is typically farmers who are in the belt of 25 kilometers, it makes sense for them to sell. Beyond that, logistic cost of fresh produce generally goes up. So if you are in the belt of Ahmednagar, Aurangabad, Jalgaon, happy to talk more. But beyond that, this typical financial feasibility you have seen doesn't work.
Okay. The other question is, can you market or sell dried products provided to your organization? So like, I think they want to dehydrate and sell it to you. Is that also an option?
Most of the cases, no, because quality control being a food product is something that we worry around and care around as well. So generally not, but happy to connect. If you have any questions, happy to connect who can with potential buyers. But generally we don't enter into buying.
Okay. Someone is asking an interesting question. Any sensor that can let us know that if the drying is complete with a X percentage of moisture remaining?
It's possible. We have not deployed it. Is one of the things that we are thinking around how this can be done. Good suggestion. We are working on that, more of a IoTization, internet connected dryers, but early stage of development.
Okay. And do you have anything in Odisha? Because I think there's someone who's from Odisha and who's looking to.
So we are working in Raigad and Koraput. ICT, my institute also has a university thing in Bhubaneswar. So you can reach out to us either at Bhubaneswar or Raigad or Koraput.
Okay. Sure. So someone is again asking capacity and cost of the dehydrator, but if I understood it correct, you are.
See, typically cost of a dryer varies. Just to give you a rough idea, we are not mainly into the selling of this part, but typically just to give you an idea, the dryer cost per batch typically varies from 3,000 to 5,000 rupee per kg input. So that's the typical capacity. So if you are looking for maybe 50 kg dryer, may cost you ₹1,00,000.
Again, wet, right?
Again, wet, yeah.
Input, raw material.
Input, yes.
Correct. Someone is asking, can we use milk to dry and make milk powder in this?
See, typically for liquids, air drying is a challenge. Spray drying is the most preferred thing. You can concentrate milk and store if it is boiled, and if you dry it, technically possible. We haven't tried a lot. Converting to powder is not an issue of a moisture or stability. It's an issue of grinding process itself. So that's a challenge. Milk can be preserved, but converting to powder is a difficult thing, mainly because of fats.
Correct. Can we dry moringa leaves? I guess the answer
Absolutely.
is yes. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. We tried with various nutrition linkages of moringa, and what we observed is nutrition is much better, typically around 30 to 45% better than what you get in open sun dry. Moringa leaves can be definitely tried.
Okay. During monsoon, we'll get less drying.
Sorry, just one point around moringa. Moringa leaves. The other observation that we have is are very perishable. If not stored properly, within 4 to 6 hours, the degradation start. And I will not call fermentation, but a heat generation starts, and that degrades the product. So if you are handling moringa, quick dehydration is needed, and that brings to the whole point that the processing facility has to be very close to the farm.
I was asking, yeah, during monsoon, same results, or we'll get less drying, or
Capacity reduces. If it is heavily raining, in that case, we generally don't suggest to do drying. If it is a cloudy weather, you get some sunshine hours, capacity reduces, or you can plug on the electrical component.
okay. Someone is asking, what is the techno-commercial feasibility of the technology for 100 kg, 1000 kg batch of tomato? Is it viable or not?
Absolutely viable. So see, if you look at tomato, let me break into three pieces. One is the farmer. For farmer, typically we offer whatever the nearest mandi price is, right? So farmer's viability comes in. Second, in the business model is woman entrepreneur. She typically gets between say 5,000 to 10,000 rupees per month. That's a good earning source for her. And for us, we operate between 15 to 30% margin, and that's a good margin for us. So if I have to break, I will not say it's a consolidated industry. I will not put a P&L of a company, but if I have to put profit and loss of each player in the value chain, everyone earns.
Okay. So is it okay if I share your email address in the chat group?
Absolutely.
Yeah, vaibhavtidke@gmail.com is okay.
Yes. Or you can put company email ID. I will put it.
Yeah. So I guess that a lot of questions coming in. There were a couple of hands that were raised.
I will be quicker in answering, but don't want to keep any unanswered questions.
Yeah. So a couple of hands were raised. So is your question answered, or is Suganya Cool Trust and Redmi Note 10? If you want to unmute and ask, but please be specific and ask a question.
Hi, sir.
Yes. Go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. Sir, actually, I'm a managing trustee of trust, sir, Cool Trust. Okay, I have a lot of women entrepreneur, women self-help group in my trust. We are willing to start the entrepreneur and we are becoming entrepreneur. Okay, what are all the feasibility? I'm from Tamil Nadu. Can you promote your solar dryers too in Tamil Nadu? Can you give your contact numbers or what are all the feasibility available for trust? You can give any subsidies or any loan opportunity, something.
Surely, ma'am. So typically, I will give a couple of examples where we have opened new geography. We opened in Uttar Pradesh recently. So how with trust we collaborate is that typically when we plan to support minimum 50 entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs to begin with, that's the size that typically we look at new geographies. Tamil Nadu we are working with, and happy to evaluate typically minimum 50 sizes we look at. And I have shared my email ID. You can write to me and we can get in touch with each other. But yes,
Okay,
possible.
sir.
We are already working. We can take it forward in Tamil Nadu.
Thank you.
And for foundations, typically it's, I will not call CSR, but it's a long-term sustainable thing. Once we enter into the value chain, it's a continuous sustainability thing. Other thing that we do with foundation is rather than giving subsidy, we collect a revolving fund. So basically you put your money in the revolving fund. Once first entrepreneur pays the money back to the bank, the same amount is rotated to the next entrepreneur. So it's a long-term impact creation for the foundations.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, you said you have also working locations in Jalgaon. So is there any possibility that we can just go there and have a look at the facility which is in working condition and get some more knowledge? The practical one, I would say.
Surely, in the current situation, we avoid because of the village restrictions and the family restrictions. Once things open up, I will work with Nilesh sir to coordinate further. But yes, possible.
No, they can directly contact you. We don't have a problem with that.
No way.
Deepak here. So my question is like we understand your business model is like you collaborate with farmers as well as the women entrepreneurs, and you have your own setup. But do you also sell this to individuals, or that is not an option for you?
We sell these machines to individuals. Again, my feedback would be if you are good in market linkages, you enter into this business, because the number of cases we have seen that investment occurs from the individual, and if there are no proper market linkages, then the investment generally doesn't yield a return. And that's why, with a word of caution, yes, you can buy.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm direct on some of the questions, but just thought to be very clear. And
No, that is important. No? Like you should be able to sell, and that's where the biggest challenge is. But since Dr. Vaibhav is a technology innovator, I think the technology will be available, but he doesn't want to be in a position where he sells it to you and then you come back and say, hey, take the product as well. And that's what he's trying to do, right? In your model where you are basically completing the loop with buying back and then selling it under your brand name.
absolutely. See, that's what the challenge we found in food processing. Number of small, large food processing units are vacant. People are not able to use because break-even also doesn't occur. So that's the challenge we realized, and that's why we entered to this business. We had more than 1,700 machines on ground, and number of those farmers started complaining that we're not able to sell, and that's why we changed our business model and kept farmer at the center. We are here to serve farmers and women entrepreneurs through our technology.
Okay, there's another question that has come in the chat box. What are your findings or experience in dehydration of fruits with solar dehydration?
Technically and commercially, both I will reply on. Technically, if you do without osmosis, then the yield is very less, number one. Also, the product doesn't look good. So if you want to try with fruit dehydration, try with osmotic process. If it has to be served as a piece, if it has to be converted to powder, then without osmosis also works. Both ways are possible. That's on a technical side. Very good flavor retention, aroma, taste, extremely good. Second, on the commercial side, fruits market worldwide is much larger than the vegetable market in a dehydrated space. But that mainly is served in the Western markets and not Indian market. Applications are snacking, various confectionery, bakery, and as well as snacking cereals. These are the various applications. Freeze drying and air drying are the two routes. Powder and osmotic are two routes. So this is a high level thing. Economy wise, you have to really look at some of the fruits are very expensive. Only during season or when you do a large stage production, it works. So taking for example, Alfonso mango, maybe 100 rupee per kg, and 20 kg giving you 1 kg will cost your product $2,000, right? And if you have to sell it, you have to sell at $4,000, and it doesn't work. So those are some of the real challenges around this thing. So fruits definitely much larger market than vegetables, but start with market linkage.
Vaibhavji, I have one more question. This is with, I mean, the way you explained about this fruit. I wanted to know about turmeric. That is point number one. And another one was oranges. Have you ever tried your this solar dryer dehydrator for oranges to make orange powders?
So both things are possible. So oranges drying is possible. Let me check with powdering, but drying is possible. That's one. You also had some other questions. Sorry.
Yeah, about the turmeric one, like when we do turmeric processing.
Absolutely. Turmeric processing is possible. curcumin retention, we have seen that typically more than 30 to 45% retention is higher. So in traditional process, if you get 3%, this you can get between 4 to 5%. Extremely good for if you are planning to extraction of this. Economies need to be looked at. One of the challenge turmeric industry is facing is import from Asian countries at a much lower price, as well as Africa, and that is a challenge in the turmeric market. So Indian turmeric variety is a challenge. Curcumin retention is good, and it can compete with Asian market, but fetching more price than the Asian turmeric is a challenge if for extraction industry. For domestic industry, it works very well so far as the product is premium.
Okay, thank you very much.
So there's another question in the chat box. Apart from solar dryer, are there any other food processing machines you develop and market?
Honestly, we are not much into the marketing of the machines. Our value chain is mainly farmers and women entrepreneurs, number one. Yes, we have some of the technologies around what we call as frost drying, which is drying below sub-zero, low humidity drying, which allows to dry products at a much lower temperature and low humidity, so that some of the hygroscopic products can be dehydrated. And the range of technologies we have, starting from drying of say pav bhaji to a liquid to anything, based on commercial things we look at, where we have a range of products into instant grains. You put water and the product is rehydrated like instant Maggi. So range of these technologies are available. Happy to chat more if there are further questions, and you can write to me. Commercially, case by case, it really varies.
Sir, for farmers, you said like say 50,000 is per month or per annum they are getting benefited, and how about the women entrepreneurs? Monthly, how much they would like with this technology?
Surely. So see, farmers, let me go into slightly agriculture part of it. So in India, in general, contract farming, I will say it's a very vague word, right? It's always a choice to the farmer whether to sell to you or not. He can always look at selling to mandi or other buyer, number one. So what we do is generally declare a pricing on a daily basis, and we look at whether that makes feasible. Second thing is that a number of times farmers don't harvest or don't ship products of B and C grade material to the mandi, and that is the product also is okay for us so far as the product is safe to consume and not contaminated with fungus and microbes. It's good to consume, only size is different, shape is different. So all that products we purchase. Number one. So when I'm saying 50,000, it's a typically amount of a food material that we purchase average from one farmer 1 year. That's a typical number. For women entrepreneurs, typical earning varies between say 40,000 to 70,000 per year net earning. So typically between say 5,000, 4,000 to 8,000, 10,000 rupees per month. That's the range you talk about, and that's a good amount at a home. It's a side business for her. She does her farming activity. She does her family responsibilities. And on top of that, this is the earning that they have. Payback period of machine typically for them, if I do net is 1 year. If I do EMI, typically EMI would do for 3 years.
Great. There's one more question. How is quality controller while drying of vegetables? What parameters are important?
See, quality control one by one. Number one, moisture is at most important. Rate of drying is important. If you don't dry soon, material get contaminated. Final moisture content is important. Foreign material is important. Microorganisms contamination is important parameter. Fungal infection is important. Color, organoleptic properties, taste is important. Number of cases, final application like rehydration and taste after rehydration is important. Just to summarize, moisture content, rate of drying, microorganisms, packaging, fungus, color, organoleptic, and rehydration. Again, happy to answer if there are specific questions around this, because it's too generic. If you have a particular question, happy to answer around a particular product.
So normally, in case then woman entrepreneur has packed or prepared this particular product after drying, is there any is there any rejections that also happen, and then the money is deducted for their product that they have prepared so far? How that works actually?
We generally don't observe such cases. Rare, because we have created SOPs and machine and the monitoring so foolproof that we don't find any rejections in most of the times. In case if there is a rejection in terms of say grading, sorting, we ask them to regrade that material. But generally, we don't find these issues.
There's a question. FSSAI license is required at processing level?
Yes. There are multiple licenses that are required. One is at a field level, which is basically farm level primary processing. Drying falls under that. So simplified registrations are there. Factories, FSSC, and ISO. So that's a separate registration. So based on where are you operating, that need to be looked at.
Doctor, hi, this is Venkatesh here.
Yes, please.
Go ahead,
Please go.
Venkatesh. Hello, Mr. Venkatesh, go ahead. We can hear you.
In terms of trying to maximize his revenue potential from the produce. With this context, farming at the processing at farm gates is really going to be a game changer to increase their revenue potential. Is there any work that you've done from that front? Or is there any other products other than what we're seeing at this webinar?
Can you please repeat the question? I lost you for earlier some of the part.
Sorry, I understand this is more of a farm to business model. Is there any other processing technologies that you've built for farmers who are operating in the consumer market? Say a farmer is trying to sell his produce directly to the end consumer. Is there a way? Is there any products that we can look at for him to handle processing units at his farm or collectively in his village?
Okay, let me answer this way. Drying is something that we predominantly do. We have actively started looking, developing, and installing a range of other machines. Pulses processing is one. The unpolished dal is something that we started with. We are also looking at cereal-based products, starting from atta and grinding that part also. And some of the other products we are looking into animal space also. So, and alternate protein. So, just to name few staples, pulses, animal, plant-based alternative, and meat are some of the areas that we are exploring. If you have any particular areas of interest, starting from freezing to retorting, you can drop me an email and we can have one-on-one conversation around what can be looked at. D2C branding, direct to consumer, is a different space. We are not much into that because taking farmers' produce to a end consumer is a tricky thing. We need a aggregator like us in between to ensure quality control, reliability, and professionalism.
Understood. What I understand is that you've already started working on that front. We'll be happy to connect with you at later points. We are very interested to collaborate with you on and see if we can work together on that front.
Surely. See, simplistically, to answer your questions and elaborate more, what we have built is a platform. There is a farmer who is producing something. There is a woman entrepreneur who can process, and we are there to buy. So far as it plugs into that platform that someone is producing, someone can process, tools can change, product can change, process can change. No, not an issue.
Brilliant. So the platform that we are building currently works in a very similar fashion. So I felt there was a synergy. There's one thing that we were trying to research and understand is if we can decentralize the institutional processing systems and put that at a farm gate level. There is rural entrepreneurship also encouraged, and and farmer is also able to maximize his income from his produce. So that was the whole context. Probably I'll send you another detailed email post this webinar, and then we can see how we can collaborate on this in the coming days. Thank you very much.
Recent sooner is appreciated. Happy to look forward for your email.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There's a couple of questions in the chat box. So one of them is, what are the negative points or any drawback of this system or solar drying in general?
Weather reliability, given there will be patches, seasons where weather is hard, unpredictable. That's absolutely one. Second is industrial dryers can be operated at a very large scale. This is very heavy lift thing, lot of operations, lot of people, lot of interactions, human angle. uh, we have seen families where a woman is doing and her mother-in-law comes and start fighting. She's earning income, I'm not getting money. You will find lot of issues across socio-economic status. Technology is there, quality concerns are there, you have to be extremely careful around those issues. So yes, whether socio-economic status, hard work, operations heavy business, uh, are some of the issues that we have to look at.
Okay, great. And someone is asking, what will be the process to start this business and what type of support will be provided from your side?
See, geography and the scale is something that we generally look at. Anything that's 10 ton and above per day is in a new geography is something that we look at, and ability to scale it to 100 tons per day. If that is the capacity that we can think around in the given geography, happy to explore those areas. But we are mainly growing by geography by geography. So if you have to write to me, you can specifically write around which geography, what's the background, how do you want to do, and it's not an industrial play. It's basically farmers and women entrepreneurs play. So that's the area that we have to look at.
Okay. And how do you compare differential rate of drying in solar system and convection drying, and also with regards to quality?
Okay, let me answer in two ways. See, uh, really looking at what quality parameters you aim to achieve is the important thing, right? That's first. Solar drying, so far as the technology is concerned, we have seen much superior outcomes in terms of dehydration, nutrition, microbiological parameters, and there are fundamental science which drives that. To give you example, just one example of microorganisms I will give. If you are using convective drying, uh, air requirement is say 1 meter cube per second. In conduction drying, air requirement is typically say 0.1 meter cube per second. So number of microbes, those are entering to the system in the convective dryer are 10x more, 10 times more than the conduction dryer. That means that the microbial load on the final dried product is much, much higher in convective as against the conduction. So there is an inherent benefit that it carries. Other example that I give is the efficiency. In the traditional process, you will get efficiencies of typically say 15%, 25%. Here we talk about efficiencies in the range of say 50, 60, 70%. So there are inherent benefits of conduction drying, and that's how it shows. Rather than calling it a holistic or umbrella level solar drying, we would like to specifically call around what S4S has created is a niche in a solar drying, which is a sweet spot between convective drying and solar drying. It drives advantage of both. So I don't want to compare general way. It's a specific around what we have created, and it delivers result. on multiple fronts.
Okay, great. There are a couple of more hands that are raised. Are you guys done? Deepak and I think 1+60 or?
Yeah, I've already asked my question.
Okay.
Sorry, I will
Okay, I'll just lower
lower
no
the hands.
problem. No problem.
Yeah, I'm done with this. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So if anybody else, I think it was good idea that Dr. Vaibhav kept the PPT short so that a lot of interaction could happen through Q&A. Okay, there's one more question. In your solar dryer, it appears it is contact drying. How do you ensure uniformity in drying?
Okay. Again, I will go back to the earlier question of a conduction versus convective drying. Here, what we are doing at a local level, when the material start seeing a solar radiation, it is absorbed in the vicinity of the material. In the picture, there are micro level, there are black spots which absorb solar heat and converts to heat. And this uniform distribution of solar radiation onto the surface allows the uniformity of a dry. Slightly technical, we call it the micro observer effect, but it works. We get uniformity, just to be in terms of outcome.
Great. There's one more question which I think you have already answered, but during cloudy weather, can it be switched to electric supply?
Yes.
And so all your machines come with electric option?
Yes.
Okay. Great. I think I'm assuming most of the questions are answered, and I've already put Dr. Vaibhav's email address. So he has put his S4S number also, email address. There's one more, let's take this as a last question and then we'll close the session. But what will be your buying price of dehydrated onion per kg from farmer? As you know, Gujarat people are selling dehydrated onions at 80 to 120 per kg in wholesale market depending on season. Tricky question, I would say.
Couple of answers. Number one, we don't buy dry onion from farmers. We buy fresh onion. We take that onion to micro entrepreneurs. We pay them processing fees. So in that way, yes, we are competitive with whatever the Gujarat can produce with the supply chain. Number one, but we don't have any particular cost of production of onion. We buy onion, payment number one. We process onion with micro payment number two. That puts to our COGS. But yes, we are competitive.
Okay, great.
Can you use it in cashew peeling process?
I have to check. We haven't done trials of cashews peeling. I think that's a. I don't know whether the question is roasting. If it is roasting, we have to try modify the system.
No.
In Konkan area, we have done for
first stage of peeling, that is before cutting.
Before cutting, like the cashew nuts itself, the bee, cashew bee that we say, that contains a certain amount of moisture, and that needs to be, people use dehydrator or they do sun drying. So
possible.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So Diksha, I think you can propose a vote of thanks, and thank you very much, Dr. Vaibhav. It's always a pleasure. And thank you for accepting our invite. You're always there whenever we invite you. So Diksha, please propose a formal vote of thanks.
Yes. Sincerely thank you to Dr. Vaibhav for a very engaging and enlightening session. And thank you to our support partners, AFST Mumbai, Entra-O2, AFST Mumbai chapter, Entra-O2, NetPro and AIFPA. Thank you to all the participants for attending today's webinar. I declare the session as ended. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot.